another Sunday, another case of the Scaries to start your work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries, where we have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news, and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour that cup of coffee and turn on that fright light while we take you on a tour of terror. And the first Sunday Scaries of 2023, after a little bit of a break, kind of recalibrating and sitting with all that horror of 2022, which we do have our list of best horror in 2022. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. We're sitting with a lot of great stuff, but we're here in 2023, and by some news here, it looks like a very diverse and almost strong start, I would say, to 2023.
Yeah, there's some good stories in here, man. I was surprised. Yeah, we were kind of talking about maybe doing one of these for New Year's, but with all the content we were doing, the best of list and everything was coming out that day anyway. And then it just kind of turned into like there was no news. Like the week
They
between
were saving
Christmas
it.
and that, there was like nothing. Like I looked on Bloody Disgusting, all our usual outlets that we check, and there was just like nothing interesting to talk about. So yep.
That's what we would have been scrounging because I was looking as well, and I was like, oh, we were kind of getting ready to do one, at least trying to put one together, and it was just really tough to kind of scrounge for news. It would have just been such a stretch. So it was like, hey, our lists were coming out, so I was like, I think that'll be a strong start to 2023.
Oh yeah. But hey, another thing that happened with us last December or this past December, we got to talk to a little guy or a fella of ours, not a little guy, but Stephen Lamort. We did an interview with him talking about The Mean One, which our review and the interview is up on the channel right now if you want to check it out. Pretty cool, really great guy. We had a lot of fun talking to him. It was actually quite nice of him. He did send us a little something. I put mine up on Instagram, but if you don't follow us on Instagram, we'll show you real quick. If you want to grab yours there, Luke.
Oh, certainly.
So yes, just wanted to do a little thank you there to Steven for sending us posters. Let me get that lined up. Yep, and they are signed. Thank you. All that good stuff.
Very nice stuff.
Awesome guy. I mean, we're going to cherish this for a while. I got to find a spot in the background. Luke, I'm sure you got to do the same.
Certainly.
That's why like my figures are all kind of knocked over and everything because I've been busy trying to rearrange some things. I know the immediate vicinity doesn't look too bad, but I've been working on my Marvel stuff and everything that's over here. So I'm just kind of quickly going to be working my way in here as the weeks go on. So
a new year, new set for you, I guess.
I'm trying. Yeah, trying to at least get a couple of new alterations in there. I've gotten some neat stuff since we've been doing this. So lots of fun.
Always staying busy. But yeah, even with that, as we've talked about, a little change in the format slightly as Splattercast is going down to once a month. So we are prepping for that currently, and that'll be out probably next Monday, it sounds like. So I think that's what kind of schedule we're sticking to. So expect that and a lot of different content going on here on the channel. But as we are here on the Sunday Scaries to talk current horror news.
Absolutely. So you want to get things started there, Luke?
Oh yeah, let's hop into our first news story here. Next time you venture out into the desert, you may need more than just a healthy supply of water. Make sure you pack a few extra large ant traps as well. Michael Giacchino will be directing a remake of the 1954 creature feature classic Them. The original premise seeing ants that have been supersized from an atomic bomb's radiation are discovered in a New Mexico desert. With this being such a throwback creature feature premise, and one of the biggest positives coming out of October 2022 was Werewolf by Night for the nostalgic feel it brought to the Marvel Universe. Can this be a hit with horror and sci-fi fans? Which, I mean, looking at the premise here, it's a creature feature, giant ants. This screams, 50s and 60s, I feel, where we've talked about it, I think, a couple months ago with the Crawling Hand, where a lot of these kind of 50s and 60s, at least for me, definitely, are a blind spot in things that I've seen or haven't seen in terms of the horror film. So Them is always something that's been on my radar. I never sat down and watched this one. I've been aware of it. I love the poster. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of these big creature features like this. So, this one, I'm curious to see how this will translate in, like more so a modern audience.
Yeah, I think that these movies are, with a couple of exceptions, probably pretty ripe to have an alternative take, have a remake to them. I think this one more so could be a lot more fun with it. I don't think it needs to go very serious. I think if they treat this more like a kaiju film and lean more into the sci-fi angle, with little bits of horror, kind of lightly laced into it, I think it could be a good deal of fun. When they're talking giant ants, I don't really see a need to try to make this like super duper scary or anything like that. Because I'm just really curious to see what their take is going to be as far as the tone. Because
Yeah.
like I said, it can go south real quickly. But I think that Michael Giacchino has a good handle on this. I mean, we were big fans of Werewolf by Night. Quite enjoyed that. We did review that on the Sunday Scaries here. So that was something that we definitely had a lot of fun with. And I know it was a big surprise for you. I've been keeping up with the Marvel stuff, relatively pretty solidly. I've seen everything. I just don't really get to the shows right away. But I know for you, you've been kind of out of the game for a minute. So that was like a breath of fresh air when you got to see it. So,
Certainly, it felt like something new and something different, something that they were really bringing to the game. Like they wanted a very specific voice for Werewolf by Night, and I think you definitely got that, from that first viewing. I haven't went back and watched that one yet. I know I meant to, but we got overloaded with so many things in October, that I haven't went back and watched it. But like looking at Werewolf by Night, and then looking at the premise for them, it's like almost I don't know if they're gonna go for a modern take in terms of bringing it into a 2023 or 2024. I mean, I think the safe bet would be looking at Werewolf by Night and seeing what he was able to do with that aesthetic, that you just keep it almost 1954 and just go that route with it. So it's not necessarily a verbatim remake, but at least same time period, and you can deal with the same themes that the original film did.
yeah, and it's kind of weird. It's one of those things where it's like if you look at remakes like The Blob, which is very successful, very very good way to redo that in the '80s. It feels like maybe this movie should have been remade in the '80s at one
Yes.
point. Like I think that they would have gotten that tone. But if he can strike that tone, make this more like a late '70s, early to mid '80s film. I think like he could really stick with some people. I think that it'd be a lot of fun. Again, I really think with a concept like this, you lean more into the fun zaniness of it and less of like we're trying to scare you with giant ants. Because it's like with giant spiders, I feel like it's a little bit easier to scare people. But even then, we've had films like Eight-Legged Freaks, which they're not attempting to scare you around every corner. There's a couple of really good tension building scenes, but for the most part, it's like the spiders are zany. They're
Yeah.
weird. They're out there. The jumping spiders, especially. It's just like they try to do a little bit more fun stuff with that concept, at least.
And I'm curious to see, because now, I haven't actually watched them. I wanted to actually watch it, hopefully before this Sunday Scaries, but it wasn't really available on any of the streaming services, at least not the ones that I had. I was able to catch a gentleman had uploaded basically a colorization version of them on YouTube, and it was cut down to 15 minutes. Basically, the 15 minutes you need to know to get the gist of the entire film. And looking at that, you can really see. I encourage anyone to go watch that, just because you can really see the inspirations. Almost like looking at something like Aliens, you really see a lot of inspirations that were taken from something like them, because they deal with going into the nest and kind of using flamethrowers and things like that. So you can really see a lot of inspirations taken from them. So I'm curious to see if we're going to bring this into a modern take. Are we actually going to do the giant ant version, or because that them can almost be almost anything? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, we can do the remake, a pseudo remake in a sense, but not necessarily verbatim, where it's like, okay, they are going to be giant ants. Because I feel like so, looking at something like Eight-Legged Freaks, it's hard to unmarry that the comedy of that, just because I think a general audience is very far removed from the creature features of the 50s or the 60s. It's like you look at something like that, with giant ants that was taken as horror or science fiction. in the 50s doesn't necessarily translate into a 2023 audience. So I'm curious to see if they'll kind of tweak it a little bit and make it something different rather than a giant ant. And we're going to go with something, not necessarily like a xenomorph, but in that same vein where it's like, we're going to do some sort of alien body snatcher type deal, or, even something like Stranger Things where it's like, the upside down with things coming through different portals,
Yeah.
things like that. I'm curious to see if that's the take they're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, they could really go a lot of ways with it, and I do kind of like that angle. I think you're presenting there, where it's almost like they're coming from maybe another dimension in some way. Because you could really mess with the ants too. They don't have to be like how the original film I believe presents them as just giant ants. Like, what if
Yes.
you like soup them up a little bit? Make them. I think I don't remember if it was before if I mentioned it, where it's like you go a little bit more kaiju with it,
Yep.
and you make them a little bit more, just out there, just not your typical, carpenter ant or fire ant kind of thing. Just make them something really spooky
Yeah.
and fun and weird and large. And I think that you got a winner, dude. I think that really could resonate with audiences. Again, you get a good cast in there, some funny people. I'd love to see like someone like Sam Rockwell pop up
Yes.
and this is like a sheriff or something.
Yeah.
Just taking on these ants. Like I think that'd be a good bit of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like, the Super 8 kind of version of this, and
Hmm.
do something more so unique. And because once a giant ant pops up on screen, I think then that's at that point the audience knows more. So it's going to be hard to unmarry yourself from comedy. So if you kind of go in the a version of an ant that, like you're saying, is a little more kaiju in a sense and unique and different, where it's its own species, I think you kind of go that route with it, lean maybe a little more into the horror, and you can get something like how we were talking about, like an Aliens or a Super 8 or something like that, and you can kind of buy it face value and not necessarily have to suspend the disbelief so much, and you're dealing with those comedy elements. I think that's the route to go. And I mean, looking at Werewolf by Night, I think the director chosen here, I think he's going to give this a specific voice. So, this one is definitely going to be on my radar regardless. If it ends up being giant ants, hey, I'm still going to watch this. I want to see what he does with it, especially if he ends up doing the in, more so 1954, and that's the time period we're going to go. I think for me, that would be an easier pill to swallow if it is giant ants, because I'm like, he's leaning into it. And he is going to go full on monster movie from the 50s, and it's like, okay, that's an easier thing to get behind. So I'm curious to see what voice he's going to give this. Either way, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to give me a reason to probably sit down, watch them in its full length, and I also want to kind of dissect some more of these kind of giant creature features from the 50s.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think there's a couple on my list of things that I've seen and done in the past that I think you should definitely check out. There's some fun ones. There's one that's not necessarily giant monsters, but Attack of the Killer Shrews is
Oh,
one that's pretty interesting. Yeah, definitely quite a bit of fun on there.
sir, I will put it on my to watch list.
Might be on YouTube.
Oh,
Honestly, it's I think it's public domain. So
okay, then I will check it out.
mhm.
Give you a full review here.
There you go.
All right, let's hop into our next news story of the Sunday Scaries. With the toilet paper wars and hand sanitizer drought still fresh in our minds, screenwriter Kevin Williamson is giving us another reason to not forget the year 2020. The new film Sick will be hitting the Peacock streaming service this Friday the 13th. Taking us back to April 2020, we see a group of friends quarantining at a secluded family lake house. That's until an uninvited guest shows up, and he isn't staying 6 feet apart, giving us some meta horror mixed with some of those classic slasher tropes that we all loved from the 80s. Will this be another fun horror classic for the fans to revisit for years to come? And this one kind of snuck up on us, I think. At least I wasn't aware of this one coming out. The trailer dropped. It's like we were kind of deciding the format of the Sunday Scaries. It's like, well, we had to pull an audible and add this one to the list. So I wasn't
Mhm.
really expecting this one to be dropping anytime soon.
Yeah, this was one of those ones where I guess the easiest way to put it is I found out about this just like I think everybody else who knew it was coming out did from the coverage of Fantastic Fest.
Yeah.
So a couple of people like I know Cody Leach, he did a review of it and everything. He said it wasn't bad. So it's one of those things where it's like it kind of popped up on my radar a couple months ago back in September, October. And it's like, okay, cool, like that's it looks neat. Kevin Williamson being attached to it is interesting. um if we want to talk about the trailer, it's one of those things where it's like we were discussing it a little bit before here. It feels very much like They Them, which was another Peacock, straight to Peacock horror film we reviewed earlier this year. We didn't necessarily like it. It did pop up on our dishonorable mentions list at the front end of our best of, and it's just one of those things where it's like it was a ballsy concept that didn't really work, and I'm afraid that that's what this is going to be, except the concept isn't nearly as interesting.
Yeah,
Um, it feels
uh,
very one note.
and that's where I am with this one. Like looking at this and knowing that this is, taking place during COVID, as everything was shutting down and we're all quarantining and stuff like that. If this had come out, I think, we're really into it. If somehow they were able to write the script and get it out, within the end of that summer of 2020, I think maybe it would be a little more intriguing. But sitting here at the beginning of 2023, it's like anything attached to COVID. I think you're going to struggle with audiences necessarily wanting to relive that moment, being so close to it right now, and still, still having a lot of stuff still in your face of COVID right now, and not having that in the rear view mirror. I don't know if you really want to relive that in your horror at this moment in time where it's like, yeah, the theme is attached and we're kind of going slasher with it, but it's still going to be so evident. And then, they play, I mean, they lean heavy into it in the trailer where I think one of the ending scenes is one of the characters trying to get into a passerby's car, and then she's asking if she's got a mask on, and it's just like, I don't know if that humor really hits right now. It doesn't play well. I don't think it's not my type of humor. And even being close, COVID aside, I just don't think it's honestly well written. And I know this is kind of being, Kevin Williamson. I was looking into it, and it seems like it's a story by him. So maybe just the general concept. I don't know how deep he would dive into the actual story itself, but I don't know necessarily if the full screenplay was written by Kevin Williamson. But it's one of those things where um, you want to attach him to kind of get that buzz around everything. So I don't know if that's really going to hit and get that quality of the original Scream or Scream 2 or Scream 4. I don't know if we're really going to get that here.
Yeah, it's toss up there, man. Because yeah, you're right. The research you just did, because you just told me right before we hit the record. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it doesn't really leave me to feel like anything too special is going to become of this. Cody Leach's review was pretty positive. I mean, he said it was fun. He says that it does have a couple of neat little twists and things like that. So I trust him. I trust his opinion on horror flicks and stuff. So it's one of those things where it's like, I think that overall we could be looking at something kind of fun here. But the trailer didn't do enough to really sell me on that, and I don't think it's going to do enough to sell anybody on it. It's also a little bit concerning that it's dropping so quickly after the trailer came out, which isn't always a concern, but I think it's fair to say with just the last time we had a Peacock movie, it came out so quick. It was just one of those things. It's like, okay, maybe they're just kind of dropping this to just get it out there and whatever. Yeah, because with a name like Kevin Williamson, you'd think if it was really something high quality, Paramount would want to get it out there instead of just putting it on Peacock.
Yeah, and that's what and us talking, just reviewing Megan recently,
Mm-hmm.
and then you talked about it in the review where January, those beginning months tend to be a dumping ground of a lot of things where we don't know what to do with, or maybe not high quality things. I'm curious if maybe that's what we're seeing here, where this is going to be in and out, where we're talking about the best of horror in 2023 at the end of the year. I feel like maybe this will be one that we've totally forgotten about. And,
Mm-hmm.
it'll take searching horror films of 2023 to remember that Sick was something that had been released. And as we talk comedy here, and that's where, my opinion in comedy and horror kind of varies from, I think, a lot of horror fans, where a lot of times it does not work for me. And looking at something like Megan, I think they they walked that line where it was like, okay, this is perfect. They knew what they wanted to do. I think the comedy worked in every aspect, and then when they wanted to do horror, I think that worked as well. Whereas this one seems, at least from the trailer, seems to be overloaded with generic comedy that won't hit for me, and I really feel like that's going to be the tone that I'm going to struggle with, where I'm going to be so far out of the film during the comedic elements of this that it's going to be hard to pull me back in during those moments of the slasher tone and that horror.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still sitting here, trying to hold out hope. We got a fun weekend coming up with Skinamarink and everything coming out. That's going to be an interesting one to check out. So we are going to kind of have two sides of the spectrum here. It feels like where we're going to have like a slasher, or at least what could be looked at as a pretty decent slasher if everything goes well, or it could just be, like we've been saying, a little generic, a little underwhelming. And then we have that kind of experimental, abstract horror film. And I'm looking forward to it. We'll definitely be doing a review of it. We'll probably get it up on Saturday. Give us some time to watch it and really sit with it. Probably put it up Saturday afternoon. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think like I was already on the fence, and then you hit me with that whole it's not actually fully written by Kevin Williamson. It's like he might just have a story by credit, or he may have just contributed some ideas, and they might just be trying to put his name on it. A much better movie than what this looks to be, but Halloween H2O did a similar thing where he just
Yeah.
entered some story beats and a couple things here and there, and they tried to plaster his name all over it to try to get more people in seats, because obviously Scream is a big thing. People are in love with it. So
Yeah, and that's where it's like, getting into screenwriters' rights and, screenplay by and written by and things like that. There's still, it's a very weird equation where I don't even know if it's very public or there is a full on equation for it where it's like, well, if there's enough percentage used in here, well, then you can get a credit as well. And sometimes I think maybe they stretch that out, especially if you're dealing with someone like Kevin Williamson, to be like, okay, well, let's try and use enough of things to justify a screenwriting credit, because I think that's going to be enough to kind of market this film. Whereas, like, I think the director isn't really well known. I think he did a Universal Soldier film.
oh
Um,
really?
yeah, so it's like I think maybe it was called Regeneration, which is like, far down the line where
It gets there.
so it's like everything in this. There's a lot of warning signs of that. I'm gonna go in this with a lot of hesitation and think maybe that this probably won't get a great review. But hey, I'm hoping it surprises me. And we get a lot of great tension in the comedy that I'm seeing that doesn't work in the trailer. Is the only stuff that doesn't work. Hey, I'm gonna try to look on the bright side here. I'm just not expecting a positive review from this one.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, we thought Megan was going to be pretty, pretty much a miss. We saw that trailer. We said, I don't know about this one. And hey, that was pretty positive. I think we
It hit.
both enjoyed ourselves quite a lot there. So we
Absolutely.
shall see.
Time will tell. But let's move into our next story here in another trailer that did drop this week. Getting that PTO denied may be an easier pill to swallow once you see what Nicholas Hoult is dealing with in his new film, Renfield. The trailer for the new horror comedy from Universal dropped online, where we see Holt playing the title character in an attempt to balance his nonstop work life with a budding romance. Renfield's boss being none other than Dracula himself, played by the wonderful Nick Cage. We see a mix of gore with a humorous tone. Slated for an April 14th release, the film promises to be a unique take using the Dracula character. With so many Universal monster properties seemingly dead in the water, is this the approach Universal needs to be taking? And, this one, I think is going to be a very intriguing take. I think, from my perspective, I think these are the chances that Universal needs to be doing, just because, we sat through the newest Mummy, and that did not hit at all. So it's like,
No.
I think you have to look at these things and say, okay, what's working and what's not working. And it's time to, throw some stuff out there and see what resonates with audiences. So looking at this Renfield take, I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do here. I think they're leaning into the comedy, and I think that's what I'm going to be expecting out of this. Nick Cage's Dracula looks pretty fabulous, so I'm definitely intrigued by this one.
Yeah. I am a little you know, holding back a little bit
Mhm.
because, for me, it's one of those things where I kind of heard the concept and I think I expected something a little bit different than what we're getting here, which is fine. I mean, it happens. It's going for more that comedy angle. I mean, with Nick Cage, I know for you it's easy to say, like, because you had said before, like, you kind of expected this tone and everything. Um, I don't know. I look at the director's other works. I remember I looked this up, and it's one of those things where it's like, do I think that this is going to satisfy that kind of itch that I want when the concept was pitched to me? It's Chris McKay. He's the director here, and he's done the Tomorrow War, Lego Movie, and Lego Bat. Oh no, he was an editor, sorry, on Lego Movie, but he also directed Lego Batman. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, the humor for me, I don't know. I just don't know if I really want this kind of tone for this movie. I was expecting something a little bit more, I guess, niche and underground with it. I kind of wanted a little something, I guess, a little heavier. This feels like it's going to be very light and that it's not going to be as dark or as, I guess, exciting to me as I want it to be. I don't mean to be that negative, but it's just like it just doesn't feel like the kind of movie I was hoping for with this. But I think Nicolas Cage looks great. Obviously, I like Nick Holt a lot. He was great in The Menu,
Yeah.
which we just saw a couple months ago. And it's rated R, so I mean, it's hopefully there will be some over the top violence, and just some really funny moments. But again, I just worry from what I've seen from the trailer. This feels very Day Shift to me, which I'm sure didn't even pop up in your head until just now when I mentioned it. Like, that movie is, it was moderate. We gave it a pretty middling review, but it is very forgettable.
That movie was actually going to be a comparison of mine.
Really? Okay, great.
Yes.
So I'm not the only one who's sitting here thinking that.
Where it's like for like looking at Day Shift, where it's like I'm hoping for that one that they were going to lean more into horror. This one, I guess I don't have any hopes of them leaning into horror. Like when again, I wasn't familiar with the director too much until you started bringing things to me. But when you say Lego Batman, I'm like, okay, well, I think it fits the bill in terms of what kind of tone we have for at least the trailer here. Um, so it's I think they're gonna lean into the comedy, which definitely looks like. I think maybe Nick Cage's Dracula are gonna be the dark moments in here. Even then, I don't know necessarily how dark they're gonna go. I would love to see them play Nick Cage's Dracula as a full-on dark character, but it's like I think for me, the perspective I'm coming from this is just because Nick Cage is playing Dracula in this film doesn't need to be the definitive one. Where it's like we're sitting in 2023 where how many different Spider-Men are there? And how many different films are going on with that, where it's like looking at this, it's like this could be one take on Dracula. Hey, and this being Dracula being that side character here, I'd be ready for a Dracula film in 2 years where it's dark. It's like, and like looking at this, I think Universal Monsters are so ripe for all these retellings where it's like, a story that we never committed to, and I think maybe it's more prevalent today more so than it was a few months ago because of what we had just seen. Luca Guadagnino had spoken about The Mummy and kind of what he
Mm-hmm.
had thought should be, a small contained story, really leaning into the horror. And I think all these ideas, I think Renfield, I think Luca Guadagnino's take on The Mummy, they can all live in the same space where it's like all these characters can have different tones where we look at both of us love Monster Squad, and that's kind of a different take, I think, on the Universal Monsters as well, where that's it's got horror in it, but it's very much a coming of age kind of comedic performance, and I think that works, and I think that's where Renfield's going to come in, where it's like I think it's going to be a fun film. I don't think it's going to be heavy. I think it's just going to be a nice joyride to sit in the theater and just experience this. And I think, Nicholas Hoult in this is going to be fabulous. Warm Bodies, I think, was wonderful. I think he works in the comedy space very well. And, even in the subtle comedy where it's like he does look like he's got those dark elements a little bit. And I mean, like The Menu, obviously, It's got a little some dark tones in it. So I think we can lean into a couple of dark tones. I don't think that's going to be the full film for Renfield. But I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah, and I hate to be so dour, and especially back to back stories with just being kind of negative about
I get
upcoming
it though.
stuff. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know. It didn't really stick with me that well. I didn't think I don't want it to say that it's like that bad. Like, I'm still excited for
Yeah,
this. The trailer wasn't something that blew me away. There's also the chance that, I'm sorry, not Resident Evil, Evil Dead, we did cover that trailer this week. That trailer had a lot of expectations for me, and it hit every single one and then some. I was really impressed. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's been a week of a lot of trailers, and it's just kind of like meh. It's not. It just kind of, I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. I'm just a little bit taken aback, but I'm a massive Nicolas Cage fan. Again, I do like Nick Holt, but Nicolas Cage has had a really great streak over the last couple of years here with things like Color Out of Space and Pig. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, I will go see something that he's in, of course. So it's like, yeah, why not? I think that it couldn't hurt. So I might as well, strap in and get ready for a good old fun time. I hope and pray that it's a little bit more unique and a little bit darker and a little bit more fun than a Day Shift, where, like I said,
yeah.
Day Shift, was fun for the time being, but it's just, am I ever going to watch that movie again? Probably not.
Well, and for me, Day Shift wasn't that much fun.
Yeah.
It was just okay. It was in and out of my head as soon as we did the review, so I actually forgot it existed when we were doing our 2023. Not that it would have popped up any which way, but it was just like a film that I had completely forgotten about, where they leaned so much into action that it almost did not feel like a horror film. Where this one, I'm hoping they kind of keep those horror undertones to justify that this is a horror film. In some sense, I don't know if they're going to do that though, but like looking at this, where it's like we just came off Megan, and that comedy worked, I think. So it's like looking at that, we're gonna go into Skinamarink, which I've intentionally stayed away from, so I don't know too much, but I know it's more so independent, probably darker than Megan. And then when we look at April, we're gonna get Renfield, and then we're gonna get Evil Dead Rise, which I'm excited for because I'm going into something that's probably gonna be a little more comedy, and then we're gonna go into something that's pretty dark, it seems like. So again, when I talk about diversity in the horror space, I think we're getting it here already in 2023.
Yeah. And when does Renfield come out again? Sorry.
April 14th.
April 14th. Yeah. So it's going to be right around that time.
Yeah.
It's because Evil Dead is the 21st.
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. So it'll be the week before. So yeah, that's all right. Yeah. I feel you. And then don't we have another movie coming out early April? Or is it end of March 65?
I think so. I think end of March is 65.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
Scream is at the start of March.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna have
Yep.
a good couple of months there with a lot of diverse stuff. So
Yeah.
and
A lot
then
of
Lord
unique
knows what's gonna
stories.
yeah, Lord knows it's gonna come out of the indie field,
Oh
because
man.
stuff kind of just gets announced and then thrown out. So but all righty. I guess if that's it on the news today,
Yes, it is, sir.
we got a little segment here, a little fun one. We were kind of going back and forth a little bit. There were some announcements, some things earlier this week. I think it was Monday, was it? We were on the
Yes.
phone talking with each other. And yeah, there's just a lot of great Blu-rays coming out this year. A lot of stuff's getting upgraded. A lot of stuff is kind of, getting the 4K treatment. A lot of stuff's coming to Blu-ray for the first time in the States. It's looking really nice. So we decided, why don't we sit back and just talk about some of those? And to start things off, I just said to Luke, hey, why don't you grab some of the most recent stuff you've picked up? Just to talk about it. We did this, I think, early on. We talked about some early pickups we had. I know I mentioned and showed that I picked up like X and a couple other things at one point. So it's one of those things where I'm like, let's just sit down. Let's go through some of these recent releases, and then we'll talk about what is coming in 2023. What
Oh
could be
yeah.
coming home to you. So I got a couple more than you do. So I think I'll start with
Go
mine, and
for
then
it.
I'll stop at a certain point, and then I'll pass it off to you, and then we'll both kind of dive in on the big one here. So
Sounds good to me.
so just today, I actually went up to a local record store of ours, place I used to work. and got a couple of good pickups. I picked up The Howling on 4K.
Good choice.
Obviously, werewolf fans here. There's lots of great special features on this thing. It's one of those things I wasn't going to pass this up. I actually didn't see if there's alternative artwork, not for the 4Ks. But it is a 2-disc edition, so very nice. You get your Blu-ray and your 4K. Another one I picked up was Alligator. Definitely, if we're talking creature features like them, this is one that I do enjoy. Something I noticed though, which I thought was kind of neat, Luke, you might appreciate this, is so you get the 4K, get the Blu-ray, then you get the Blu-ray, the television cut.
Oh shit.
So I think there's some extra footage in there. So that's pretty fun. I like when they do stuff like that, and they felt justified to give it its own disc. So, we'll see what comes with that. And then okay, go ahead and show what you have.
Okay, well, not horror, but I did pick up. This was during the Criterion sale. I have to complete my David Lynch collection, so I had to pick up Lost Highway, which just came out in October. This one I have not actually checked out yet, but I'm going to get around to it. I think there is Inland Empire coming out as well on Criterion, which is another David Lynch one I'm going to have to pick up. But I'm going to have to dive down the rabbit hole on this one and check it out. I think this one was hard to acquire before this Criterion had come out. So this is the 4K version as well. So I'm definitely excited to hop into that one. And then I did pick up one that is near and dear to almost every horror fan's heart. I got the 4K for the Lost Boys here. Once that was announced, I knew I had to pick that one up. Just visually, I need to check this one out. Again, as running and gunning so much with October through November and into December, haven't had any time to actually check out any of the stuff yet. So over the next probably month, I'm gonna have to sit down and check out these transfers as well. And then I do have one last one here that I know is an overlapping one for us. So do you want to talk about that one with your other picks?
Yes. So yeah, and I'll actually show this is gonna give away, but I picked up Terrifier. And this is interesting because we had we don't really care for this one. This
That's
was
true.
one that we don't, but I love the first one so much, or the second one so much, that I was one of those things where I'm like, I kind of felt like I needed to have it as like the completionist in me. And I did want to say I can't show, I gotta kind of see how I'm gonna do this real quick. Well, actually, yeah, you're not gonna be able to make anything out. I just noticed it does have alternative art.
Oh wow.
So I'll
Okay.
probably flip that one on there. Don't worry, YouTube, those nipples were covered. So
Boo.
I had to get it. Again, the completionist in me here, and plus I do want to give it a rewatch. Since I am such a diehard of the second one, and when the third one and whatever else comes out, it'll look nice on a shelf. So
Absolutely.
there it is for that. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and show what you got there, and I'll show what I got.
All right, my last pickup here is we've just a new fresh pickup for both of us here. This is the 4K version of the wonderful, the great, the iconic already Terrifier 2, which of course, seeing our review and how our lists of 2023 and how we always seem to mention it at least every other episode, if not every episode, we had to pick up Terrifier 2, and this being on 4K, I was noticing a little harder to find, it seemed like. So,
Yeah, they're selling quick.
at the time I checked this Best Buy exclusive, and at the time it was looking like you were not going to be able to pick this one up online. I noticed that there are a couple copies locally, so I had to venture out and snag those from our local Best Buy.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that too, because it was definitely one I wanted to get on 4K. I just was waiting until I get my funds up a little bit. I did not realize that this was going to go so quickly. So definitely one I want to have on 4K because it is so hard to find. Though it's one of those things where it's like, man, do I leave this sealed? Because we each bought the film digitally, so
Yep.
I got our support twice. Um, and I can't help it. Little story about me. I don't know how many times I've said it on here, maybe never, but I know I've told Luke this a couple times. He witnessed it. I used to be really bad at some things, man. When I'd get a movie and I find out that there was a steel book, I'd get the steel book and I'd leave it wrapped, and then I'd go and buy the movie itself, brand new. I was double dipping all the time for all kinds of films I loved. So of course, Terrifier having so many, Terrifier 2, I mean, having so many cool additions, I went and double dipped myself, and I got the Blu-ray here. This is the one I am going to open to listen to that commentary and check out some of these effects reels and things like that. But I mean, it's great. It's got the collector's edition, spot there, so it definitely will fit nicely with my Scream Factory stuff. And then again, I couldn't help myself because they have the Steelbook, the Walmart edition. I walked into Walmart the other day. This was available. It was the only one they had on the shelf. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to get it. And yeah, I'm going to leave that one sealed and throw it in the background here. So yeah, I have triple dipped on Terrifier 2. So
Gotta support the
Damien
cause,
Leone,
sir.
we are supporting you. Get your ass on the show. I want to interview
Exactly.
you. I
There
want
we
to
go.
talk Terrifier with you.
That's what it is. Dylan has 3 copies. I'm definitely picking up the Steelbook. Just haven't gotten around to that one yet. And every edition looks so nice. It's like it's for horror fans by horror fans. They know what we're
Mhm.
looking for. So it just makes it so hard to not pick up almost every version there is because, in a world where a lot of Blu-rays are just very basic and you don't get that much. And then when you look at something like a Scream Factory and they're so nice and very in depth, and it's just like these aren't Scream Factory, but they feel like Scream Factory because of how in depth and how well the artwork is. So it's hard to not pick up every edition that there is out there.
Yep. And I agree. It does make it tough, especially, the beauty of 4K is like you can upgrade things. Like I still have my Howling Blu-ray over there, just because I don't like to let those go until I know I'm going to get this. But yeah, I walked into the place I went today and they just so happened to have it. So I grabbed it. So I'll be selling that off. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to do it. But when you have movies like this that are indie underground, you want to support the cause, you got to pick it up a couple of times. And now my Terrifier collection as of right now is complete, at least till Terrifier 3 comes
Oh,
out.
there
So
we
we'll
go.
see. Mm-hmm.
The inevitable Terrifier 3.
Yes, hopefully we get that. I think it's pretty much guaranteed at this
Yeah.
point. Movie made a ton of money, so we'll see. And what studio wouldn't want to back that right now? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like who wouldn't want to do it? I'm sure there's a ton of studios that'll be like, no, garbage, but they don't know. So, but money talks. Money does talk.
We'll see what happens.
Alrighty. So that's
Platinum
what we
Dunes.
got there. And then we're going to kind of run through a couple of these. Um, let me see. I'm going to get us all prepped up here and get the old
Yeah,
classroom.
these are things that we have not acquired yet, but are hoping to in 2023.
Yes. So we're going to be using things like Dawn of the Disc and, of course, Blu-ray.com as our, main share screen thing here, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying, but point is, it's here, it's there. Let's take a look. So the first thing that's going to come up here, we'll stick it to Major League Horror. On Friday, we just had it announced. Razorback, this wonderful Australian creature feature, is coming from Scream Factory. If you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend picking this up when it comes out. It's very good.
Is this the first HD release?
No, this was released by Umbrella at one
Okay.
point, but
All right.
yeah, this is one that's coming to us in the States from Scream Factory on in March. So that's pretty awesome. Very excited about that. Another one, James Wan flick here, Dead Silence, coming to 4K.
I might have to revisit that one. I can't remember if I like that one or not.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so it's one of those ones. Though it is James Wan, I would like to check it out. Dr. Giggles is going to be coming to us here also in March. Now, these are just the most recent, so there's even some more. But this is one that, like, I remember watching this, I think, on AMC Fear Fest. And
I've never
yeah,
seen this one.
creep me the fuck out. Yeah, I will have to pick it up. We'll probably cover it at some point down the road here. But yeah, let me get out of. We're just talking Dr.
There's
Gables
Leo
here.
DiCaprio pointing.
Oh yeah, Exorcist 3 is coming to 4K.
Gosh, how many 4K releases are we getting now? There's
Dude,
like,
it's everything. All these horror movies are coming to 4K. Um, and then we're kind of gonna skip some of the exploitation stuff here. This for non horror movie fans, this Rocky collection looks
there we
pretty
go.
good.
We got Duel
Yes,
there
Duel,
in
Duel.
4K.
That's Steven Spielberg's
One,
first
if you have
flick.
not checked out, I highly recommend.
Is it horror? Would you consider it more thrillery?
Yeah, more thriller, but again, it shades of gray. Cape
Let me see.
Fear,
And
all that stuff.
who's releasing that? It doesn't say. Um, but it might just be a standard from the studio. This is a big
Sidekicks.
one. So yeah, this is from Vinegar Syndrome. They're releasing From Beyond. So this is very cool, very fun.
Gorgeous cover.
Luke had to point this one out to me. And my awesome sister is picking it up for me because my birthday is at the end of the month. It will
And
be out, I think, was it say in like mid-January?
it's wild how these things are being announced and they're going to be out already. It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They're just upgrades. So, it's like they can kind of get it and then announce it and it'll be right out. And then there's a handful more on here. And then we're just going to run through Blu-ray.com
There
and see what they
is.
had. This is the big one that I wanted to point out coming up here. We just saw it, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming to 4K.
There we go.
What a cover. Oh my God, that's wonderful.
That's gorgeous.
That art, I love it. And then
I'm
I think
excited
this
to see
is,
what that looks like.
I believe, if I remember correctly, this is like a sleeve, and then this is what the 4K will look like, just the classic poster. Which we can see Dark Sky Films. They might have a better look at it. If not, I think you can pull it up on Amazon. Yeah, no, it's not really doing anything for me there. But it is one of those things where it's like, oh, here we go. This is the steel book as well that's coming out for it. So we get a look at the discs and everything. I will definitely be picking up the standard edition if it does come in that kind of sleeve there. Because I think that looks nice. I've had stuff where you've had that poster before.
Yep.
Not saying it's a bad poster, but it's just one of those things. Oh, if you there was a sale on this for $11.99 on Amazon.
Oh man.
If you need it, there's a lot of quality films in here for 3, 4, and
Pino.
5. Just kidding. I would only ever want to own 5, maybe. But as long as it's free, I'm not paying for any of those sequels. That was a rough one. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything. Dawn of the Disc wise, kind of going back this way, yeah, because then we're getting back to this. Is probably the last thing was MVD is releasing Swamp Thing on 4K.
Okay, yes.
And we did get the announcement back when we still had Gorecast that Swamp Thing 2 would be coming to 4K. So,
oh my gosh, I was so pumped to see Swamp Thing on 4K. I cannot wait to pick that one up. The Scream Factory is out of print, so it's going for an obscene amount. So I was so excited to see that one. I don't know if there's any extra special features on that one, but easily picking up that Swamp Thing on 4K.
Yeah, and then I forgot to mention also Bubba Hotep, which we just covered on the podcast a couple weeks back, right before the festivities, is coming out, and there is a look at the slipcover and everything. Looks wonderful, wonderful flick. Thank you again, Luke, for introducing that into my life. And Scream Factory is also doing this on 4K. It's a double feature of Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2. Never
Which those
seen
are
any
blind
of those.
spots. Okay, yeah.
So I've never seen them. And then, yeah, we get back down here to things like Martin and the Terrifier big 2-pack thing that was coming out in Germany.
Oh, look at that bad boy.
Lucky bastards over there. They get that one. I think that was Germany. Oh, yeah, it was from Umbrella. So, yeah, it makes sense. Alrighty. And then I'm going to pull over here. Let's take a look at some of this. This is going to be a little broader. We're going to see some repeats on here, but there were a couple as we go back that, this one didn't have. Like we have Dawn of the Dead that was coming out, and then this is the Return of Swamp Thing like we spoke about there. So it's like those are a couple. I just traded in my Blu-ray for Dawn of the Dead. Now we're caught up to current time here because obviously Halloween Ends just came out at Terrifier 2. But we do have this. This is why I wanted to go back to remind us again that They Live is coming to 4K. Very shortly here with a different edition. I know
Yes.
they had the first edition. They Live 4K. Didn't you grab that?
Yes.
And now you might want to grab this one, buddy, because that
This
art
is.
is beautiful.
I know this is ridiculous.
Yeah, and then going forward here, we're going back up this way. I thought there was. Oh yeah, they're releasing Scream the Steelbook again. That one's going to be coming out. So if you're a Scream fan and you don't, it is one I want to get on 4K. I do not own it on 4K as of right now. And then this is one. Phenomena. So this is isn't this what's his name? Dario Argento.
Hmm.
This is coming out. I have this on Blu-ray. I have not seen it yet, but it was a recommendation from Andrew from Review the Right Thing. He got me a copy, and I need to watch it. But yeah, that's a very nice cover. Looks very cool. So,
Argento in 4K. I don't think you can beat it. So
oh yeah. Do you have the original Suspiria in 4K?
I do. I haven't opened it yet though.
Oof. Yeah, that is definitely one that I would like to grab myself. And then, yeah, just a couple more here that I wanted to highlight. Just Rawhead Rex coming to 4K. This is kind of like a fun cult one. One I've never seen,
I
but
have not.
definitely I
I
want
remember
to check it out.
I think it was the DVD used to go for an obscene amount of money at buybacks,
Hmm.
the used media store that we both worked at one time. How exciting is it? Rawhead Rex is getting a 4K. This is the time we're living in. Swamp Thing's getting a 4K. Finally, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is getting a 4K. From Beyond, just like who would have thought? Where we're struggling to find a lot of these things on VHS, and then maybe if you're lucky, they were transferred over to DVD, but surely not a Blu-ray copy. And now we're getting a lot of these in skipping just a normal HD, and we're going to 4K. It's wonderful stuff.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot more that is probably going to get announced, but those are just some of the ones I wanted to cover, and those are just really the next couple months. So and that's the kind of the thing that they do with a lot of these Scream Factory things. They only release a few every couple months. So I just got on their website here, and yeah, that's everything up to snuff right now. So definitely keep an eye out for stuff, guys. We will too. I feel like every couple months this would be something nice to do on the
Yeah,
channel, especially for some lighter news weeks. We can always take a look and see what is coming, considering we don't have Gorecast on here anymore. So it is something where it's like, of course, I want to talk physical media releases, as much as I can. So
maybe next go around, we'll be talking about a Barbarian physical release.
oh, I'd hope so, man. It's one of those things where it's like you want it so bad. They said that they already recorded a commentary for it and that things were looking good, but then it's been radio silent ever since. So we'll see.
Time will
We'll
tell.
see.
Hopefully down
Absolutely.
the line somewhere.
Alrighty, but I think that about wraps us up here for this week's Sunday Scaries, Luke. It's good to be back.
Oh man, we are kicking off 2023 here with a glorious start. A lot of things to be looking forward to on the horizon in terms of the horror genre. I'm sure a lot of more news will be announced. Obviously, horror community, that bank account will be drained just in the next few months. So you might want to get a second job just to fund your horror habit. But it is looking pretty good in terms of all the horror news here.
Absolutely. So definitely lots to look forward to. Lots of good movies. Lots of movies I'm not 100% sure how we're going to feel about, but I will be there with Luke to check them out so we can report back. I'll let you guys know what's worth it and what may be worth just streaming, of course. And of course, this week we got to look forward to, again, Skinamarink is
Yes.
coming out. So we're going to be getting you guys a review of that. Going to a local cinema for us that we love to go to. We don't get to go there too often, but we're going to be checking them out there. And then, of course, we're going to be having reviews for, Sick will be out that weekend, and a lot of other stuff coming to the channel this week as well. So definitely keep your eye out on that button. Hit that subscribe button, and keep an eye out on your news feed because we'll be popping up quite a bit.
Yeah, we got that Friday 13th coming up. Of course, we got to
Oh
celebrate
yes,
it the
yes. I
most
forgot to
appropriate
mention
way.
that. Friday the 13th is coming, and we're going to be talking about
Something.
Michael Myers.
Exactly.
There you go. But alrighty, well, I guess that about wraps us up. So, Luke, you want to take us out?
Oh, okay.
What's up?
Yes. Certainly, certainly, sir. Yeah, so that wraps us up for the horror news. But until next time, I am Luke Janesco.
And I'm Dylan Newell.
And friends, stay scared.